Thinking Liberty, Episode 3.
Welcome to Thinking Liberty, the podcast that explores lifestyles of freedom-minded individuals. Join us as we discuss work, hobbies, health, learning, and more while living a travel-orientated lifestyle. Be curious, be open, be inspired, be free. And now, here are your hosts, Zach and Sarah Varnell.
Hey everyone, welcome to Episode 3. No guest this week, but instead Sarah and I are just going to do a solo episode where we're going to talk about one of the favorite places that we've been so far in our RV adventure, Townsend, Tennessee. What our goal with these solo episodes is to let you guys know about some of our favorite places and also to condense down the stuff that we did in these places since we're typically there for 2 weeks to a month, and condense it down into something like 48 hours worth of activities and let you know what we think are the best things to do in each of these places.
The best things that we were able to do in the time that we were there, and just, give you an overview, basically 48 hours.
Yeah, so we'll let you know, what we think is best, and maybe if we miss something and we wish we could have done it, we'll let you know that too. So for Townsend, we're going to have a couple things to tell you, but right now I want to let you guys know that we're coming to you from our mobile studio at Charlestown State Park in Charlestown, Indiana. We're about 15 or 20 minutes away from Louisville, and we've been using this, state park as a nice launching off point to go visit Louisville and to get some hiking in here at the state park.
So we're getting to see some really cool parts of Indiana and some cool parts of Kentucky at the same time because we're right on the border.
Yeah, here at the state park, we've been basically able to hike as much as we want, and we've been aiming to do it nearly every day. And I think we've hiked just about every trail here in the park, which is nice.
Yeah, we head out after work before dinner, and this park has about 7 or 8 trails that you can easily get to. One's within walking distance of our campground, and then a couple you just drive like 2 minutes further into the park to get to them. And they have, different levels and different distances. They actually have a little pamphlet that details out what you can expect to see and experience on each trail. Just be sure to add like half a mile to their estimates on each one, but it's been really nice.
Yeah, and one of the trails here was really interesting because it took you to a place called Rose Island, which was an island off the Ohio River. And they say that it's an old or, at this point, sort of abandoned amusement park. And I think it was from the 30s. So it's not really an amusement park like we would think, like Disney World or, Six Flags or any of that.
They had a bunch of picnic tables. They said they had enough picnic areas to seat 1,500 people. And then they also had a pretty large size swimming pool and then a dance hall and kind of just like an event space for people to just kind of hang out. My guess is that it was just a lot cooler and just an interesting thing to do that didn't take people too far away from the city, but it was kind of a weekend escape. And there was also a little hotel there or inn.
Yeah, it seemed like people would come prepared to picnic and just spend time with their family and, spend an entire day there from very early in the morning to late at night. So not the type of amusement park that we know, but still sounds like a lot of fun.
It was cool to read about the history of it. They've got a bunch of plaques up along the way that kind of tells you what was there. And, they also have some, they interviewed some people that visited when they were younger. And so they've posted up some real person experiences of visiting and reminiscing. And then there was also a giant flood that came over the island, which kind of put an end to it and ruined most of the facilities. So they also show you at different parts where the floodwaters came up to. And it's kind of crazy because at one point you're like, oh, that's like a foot. That's not really a flood. But then you get somewhere and it's like twice as high as you. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I see this now.
So aside from hiking and all that good stuff in Indiana, we were going into Louisville. And one of the things that we had to do in Louisville was to go to Churchill Downs. And we were there the weekend after Derby Day. I think we got into town on Derby Day, but we were just way too tired to go and venture into town.
Yeah, well, we got in like several hours after the race started anyway. But
Yeah.
initially, our plan was to get in the week before. But, with RVing, you're kind of on nomad time, so it's hard to predict when and where you're going to be anywhere. And work trips kind of delayed our trip by a week. But we still went to the races anyway, just on a different day.
Yeah, and it was still a lot of fun, and I don't know if it's normally this packed, but there was a lot of people there. Maybe it was still kind of riding the wave of Kentucky Derby, crowds and people coming into town for that type of thing. But, we went and we were checking out the horse races. We, of course, had a mint julep at Churchill Downs. The first race we just kind of watched and placed wagers in our head because we didn't really know what was going on or how to even bet on the race.
Yeah, I thought that we could get there by the statistics book and learn how to read it, but it was so much information. It was kind of overwhelming for one afternoon.
That book meant nothing to me. But after the first race, we figured it out. And we went and we placed some small wagers on the next race, which I think we lost. And actually, funny, the first race, which luckily we just bet on in our own heads, we didn't place any money on it. The horse that I thought would win finished the race with no jockey on its back somehow.
Yeah, we missed what happened there, but we were looking and we're like, oh, that's your horse. Oh, where's the jockey?
So it's a good thing I didn't bet on that one.
I hope he was okay.
The second one we also lost, and then we were going to try one more, and fortunately we won a little bit of money off the second one betting on Triple Chelsea. It was, a small amount of money, which we just turned right back in and bet on the third and lost it all, went home. But it was such a small amount, and we knew that was what we were doing it for.
Money for the day, and it was it was fun. You definitely get more excited about the race when you've got something riding on it, even if it is a small amount. It's, fun to have your favorite horse that you've picked out. And
the crowds were very energetic, and that made it a lot more fun, too.
We were next to one lady who won, and she really freaked out. She was like, I won!
Yeah. And it was nice seeing some people there in the full Kentucky Derby attire.
Yes, the hats.
Yeah. So it was nice to be able to check off that off our bucket list and have visited Churchill Downs and bet on a horse race and drank a mint julep. Other than that, we went to Against the Grain Brewery that's right outside the Louisville Slugger Stadium. And I really enjoyed that. They had good food and they had good beer that we tasted there, and we took a bottle home.
Yeah, really good fruit saisons. Yeah. And then we also went to Goodwood Brewing as well, which was within walking distance of Against the Grain, so that we could try another local brew. And those were pretty good. They were pretty standard crafts, but they were very well done. And then they had live music, so it was cool getting to see kind of the local bluegrass style of Kentucky music.
So that's about it for our time in Louisville.
Yeah, if you have any suggestions of things that we missed or that you think our listeners should check out, let us know and we'll add it to our list for our next visit, and maybe we'll add it to our show notes page. So now that we're headed out of Louisville soon, we're going to be moving back down into Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're going there to visit friends and family, and that kind of prompted us to talk about Townsend since it's in Tennessee and it's kind of close to where we grew up and kind of our home. And so we were reminiscing on our favorite times there. That was really our first big trip in the RV. We stayed there for 3 weeks, and it was just a really memorable trip for us. Just felt really freeing, and it was just experiencing RV life full on for the first time. So, let's talk a little bit about why we picked Townsend in particular instead of going more towards Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge.
Yeah, so really I just seen Townsend mentioned on an online forum, and I'd never really heard of it before, but the people described it as, the best of Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and the Smokies, but without the touristy or the over touristiness of it. So I liked that. I wanted to stay somewhere that was a little more low key and maybe venture into Gatlinburg or
Yeah, I mean,
Pigeon
we
Forge.
definitely like our cheesy touristy things as well, but we also like the peace and quiet during the week and being able to kind of get away and escape and being in the woods.
Yeah, and I think that was a great choice. I loved being in Townsend. One of my favorite things that was really close was Cades Cove, which is a just a loop that you can drive around in the Smokies, and there's all sorts of wildlife in there, both domestic horses that are just beautiful, frolicking and galloping out in the fields with the backdrop being the Smoky Mountains. And then you got to see turkeys, and we saw a couple bears, deer, and a fox.
Yeah, I was actually chatting with a lady. We went to a couple wine tastings while we were there because it was near my birthday. And she mentioned that the Smokies and Cades Cove in particular are notorious for deer jams or bear jams. And I remember thinking at the time how silly it would be for people to pull over and stare at deer and block traffic for deer. But then, of course, when we saw some baby bear cubs, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to pull over. So we pulled over, making sure that we were out of the road completely. But we did pull over so that we could take pictures and gawk at the little bears. And then I kind of got a better understanding of if you don't see an animal every day, it's going to be exciting no matter what that animal is. But it was really cool because they were out in the field. There was that really tall grass. And I guess they were playing with each other because every now and then one would pop up and then it would pop back down. And then one a little bit further down would pop up and then pop back down. And it was just really adorable.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see the fox we saw too. I guess I'm not sure the exact kind, but it was a red fox. And it ran beside our car for about 100 yards or so, just, maybe 10 feet into the woods and stopping every now and then to look at us while we're looking at it.
I was like, what are you guys doing here?
So, highly recommend Cades Cove. We've seen people biking it, running it, and mostly driving their car through it. And you might need to do it a couple times in order to really see everything you want to see. Maybe you won't see bears the first time, but if you do it enough, I think you will.
And there's a lot of little trails off of it too, and a lot of historical sites off of it. There's a old schoolhouse that we stopped and looked at and got a couple pictures at. And actually it was kind of funny to me because I actually found this really giant spider, and Zach was surprised because I was trying to take pictures of it instead of shrieking and running in the opposite direction.
Yeah, that was unusual. And then, speaking of trails off of Cades Cove, one of our favorite things in Townsend altogether was one of the trails there called Abrams Falls. When we first hiked it, we had no idea what we were getting into. We saw somewhere that it was a 2.5 mile trail.
I think it said 2.5 miles to the falls, and somehow our brains were like, oh, it's only 2.5 miles. We can do this with no preparation, no water. We'll be fine.
We thought it was just going to be a stroll in the park. But we get there, and not only is it, I guess, a little over 5 miles there and back, but it was really tough 5 miles. There was a lot of elevation change, very rocky, pretty tough, and it wore us out. And the first time when we did it with no water, no snacks or anything, we were just exhausted by the time we got back. But we did see that we weren't the only people that were making that mistake, because the second time we went out there, because we had to go back with our camera and do it all the right way, bring snacks, bring water, and spend more time. We saw people starting the trail at maybe 6 o'clock, and this is during the winter months when it's getting dark earlier, and it's getting dark even earlier in the woods. And they were starting it with like fishing poles and taking their kids with them, and their kids were dressed in, Sunday clothes, wearing sandals and stuff like that. So that was a little bit silly. I hope, they turned back relatively quickly when they saw that it was getting dark.
Yeah, but it's a really neat little trail. You start off and you're going down, and then pretty soon you start going up again, and it's a pretty steep climb, and then you get to kind of this ridge overlook. And the first time we went, it was raining a little bit, and when we got up to the ridge, and we looked over. The fog was starting to clear out just a little bit. So we saw all of these really tall trees that were coming up from the bottom, and they were just, it was just kind of I don't know, it was just an amazing, breathtaking view with the fog and the trees. And
Yeah, that would have been the only thing we saw. The hike still would have been worth it, but it got even better when we got down to the falls. And, that was just the icing on the cake is when we got down there and, we were expecting some little maybe trickle over, a creek bed or something, but it was a really nice falls.
yeah, you go down into the gully, and then there's a little bridge that you cross over, and then there's a wading pool, which actually they say can be pretty dangerous. So use caution if you decide to try to get into it. And then the falls are across on some pretty high rocks, and you can actually circle around and climb up to the top of the rocks and be at the top of the waterfall, or you can just hang out at the bottom and have your picnic lunch or whatever. But it was really nice, and it was definitely worth it. Like you said, we went twice because we forgot our camera the first time, and we were like, okay, we have to go back and get pictures because it was just something that we really wanted to remember.
Yeah, and then we ventured a little bit further onto the mountain, and we went to a place called Clingman's Dome, which I don't know if it's in Tennessee still or if that's in North Carolina.
Yeah, it might be right over the border in North Carolina, I think, but it's still part of the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, it's definitely the Smoky Mountain. It's still the national park or the national forest. And we ventured into North Carolina too, and that's where we were able to see some elk roadside,
Yeah,
and that was
the first
pretty
time
cool
for me, so that was really cool.
Yeah, again, like the bear jams and the deer jams in Cades Cove, it was causing an elk jam where everybody was pulling over and taking pictures of these elk. And there were park rangers out there firing, I guess, blanks out of their shotgun to keep the elk away from the road and to scare them off. And they were out there, too, prepared with paintball guns in case they got too close to anyone.
A little aggressive, so people were kind of getting out of their cars to take pictures and look at them. So they wanted to make sure that they didn't get too close to the people and get too anxious and start getting aggressive with them.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see elk for the first time and to also see how, the locals deal with it. And then Clingman's Dome itself was really neat. It wasn't too much of a rugged hike, but it was
not a long one either.
But it was a lot of elevation if you're not used to walking uphill. Because we started at a parking lot, and it's a slow and steady uphill for quite a while until you get to the actual dome.
And then it's a uphill as you loop around up to the top of the dome.
Yeah.
But it's right off of the Appalachian Trail, too. So part of the trail is actually on the Appalachian Trail. So you get to kind of check out what that's like. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's a good way to just be on it for a minute.
Yeah, it was cool to see hikers coming off of the trail and through hikers and then people picking up the day hikers and things like that. So we definitely suggest Cades Cove, Abrams Falls, Clingman's Dome, and venturing into North Carolina and, hoping you get a glimpse of some elk. But we also did the more touristy stuff that you would kind of expect and associate with the Smokies, like going into Gatlinburg and going into Pigeon Forge.
Rode a Ferris wheel and saw the city lights through that.
Yeah, that was fun. And we did a lot of shopping there at the outlet malls. There was a really big, outlet mall with lots of good stores, and we got some cheap clothes and things like that.
We did the Smoky Mountain Alpine Coaster.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I would do it again after paying attention to some of the news stories about these things.
Recently about one of them breaking down and people being stuck or something like that on the goat one?
I don't know. I think it was even worse than that.
Oh, gosh.
I don't.
Okay.
But it was fun, and we made it off of it safely. But it's an alpine coaster where you're on. I don't even know how to explain it, but you're
wooden and metal track, and you're in like a little cart, and they kind of shoot you off, and they tell you do not use the brake unless it's an emergency, and so you're just kind of shuttling along, hoping that nobody in front of you uses the brake, and hoping that nobody behind you is somehow going faster than you.
So all those touristy things are fun to do at least once. We also did horseback riding in Cades Cove, which was really nice, and those are the same horses I think you see when you're in Cades Cove.
Yeah, they have a little riding stable in there.
Yeah, And that was fun. It was the first time I'd ever ridden a horse, despite, having family members that, raise horses and have, I've been around them quite a bit, but I'd never actually been on one. So that was quite, an experience for me. And it was a lot of fun. And we were that day we were the only couple. There was nobody else except our riding instructor out there with us. So it was really nice to have basically the trail to ourselves and, just have all the attention of the instructor and just have a conversation with him. He said that it's also pretty common to see wildlife like bears while you're out there riding your horse.
But he did say that the horses are used to it, and they stay pretty calm. They're trained to stay calm and just kind of keep going or turn around. And
I think the bears don't pay any attention to horses either.
Yeah, that's true. He did say that. We also checked out Townsend, Tennessee during the late summer, early fall months, have a sunset music series. And so we checked that out one night. And the night that we went, it was Steve Kaufman. He was playing, and it was kind of just like a bluegrass style flat picking.
Yeah, which he's also a 3-time national flat picking championship winner. So he's probably one of the best, guitar pickers in the country. So it was great. And we weren't familiar with him at all, but his music was great.
Yeah, and we'll link to one of his videos or his page in the show notes as well. It was a pretty crowded night, and we got there right on time, not early. So we hung out in the back. It's like this open air location or venue. They do have like a covered roof in case it rains, but other than that, it's pretty open air. So we just kind of hung out in the back. There's some barns nearby, and there was a silo, and so we just kind of danced around and. Yeah, we just kind of danced around as the sun went down. And, it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's just a really cool memory that I love.
And I think while we were there, too, wasn't there a meteor shower going on?
Yeah, so one of the first nights that we were there, actually, there was a meteor shower. And it was just another thing that kind of added to the specialness of our first trip out. So that night, we laid a blanket out, and we just laid down and waited and watched and would point out the giant meteors as they came through, and it was just really special.
Yeah, it was cool because Sarah actually got some pretty good photos of the meteor shower.
They're not that
well,
good,
to me,
but...
I liked them. I think they were good. I mean, almost any time I've tried to take pictures of stars or meteors or even the moon when it's full, it always turns out terribly. But Sarah,
they capture the memory. That's about all I can say for now.
Anyway, she's being modest, but I thought they were good pictures of the meteor shower, and our RV made it into the picture, so it was cool to have a cool setup. Yeah, it's cool to have a little picture of our first RV trip with a, shooting star in the background.
Yeah.
And then of course, I think every episode now we've talked about barbecue, so we can't leave it out on this one.
Keep it up now.
Yeah. So, we ate at a couple different places in our time in Townsend. There was a good Mexican restaurant that we liked. There were a couple
distance to the RV park too.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, did we mention the name of the RV park?
No.
Yeah,
it's Big Meadow.
Big Meadow.
And that was a great place. I remember their internet being good, and we were, testing out a few different, Wi-Fi, MiFi type solutions at the time. But I'm not even sure that we really needed to use much. Like, we got some testing done and got, kind of decided which one we thought was best at the time.
Yeah.
But their internet was great.
Lulled us
we were
into
able to work
a false
on it.
sense of security where we thought, if they have good internet. But I think it's been one of the only few, maybe 2 or 3 out of them have had actually reliable internet. But, that's just part of it. So
yeah, after that, I was like, what are all these people talking about with RV park internet being bad? In our experience, it's great. But so we were at Big Meadow, and there was a nice Mexican restaurant within walking distance. And we also got a few suggestions from other people in the park about other restaurants, which did not turn out to be that great. One of them, I think, just wasn't our style. We didn't really care for it, and other people may. But one place we really did like was Smokin' Joe's Barbecue. The food was good. The sides were good. And, sometimes that's rare for a barbecue restaurant to have good barbecue and good sides. And I think they
had really
both of them
friendly,
down.
Good service, too.
And
Everyone
I think
there was friendly.
That was the highlight, I think. It's like it was a very relaxed atmosphere. You could sit outside. We saw people just playing cornhole. They had the smoker, like, right outside, where everybody could see what's going on. They're, cooking the barbecue right in front of you. Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it, and I'd eat there again.
And other tasting experiences that we did while we were there, there was a little small town just outside of Townsend that we went into to check out Blue Tick Brewing. And it was a really cool laid back place too. The guys behind the bar were all really friendly. So we sat at the bar. We went there a couple different times and we would just chat with them and, trade stories. And one thing that I thought was cool about the brewery is that it's reportedly Tennessee's first co-op brewery. So everyone that works there has some sort of stake in it. And then also they allow customers to be sort of like patrons, and you can, pay an annual fee, and then you get members only events and discounts and stuff like that, which I would definitely do if we lived near there. But it's pretty good beers. They have a pretty standard list, but they're all really good and well crafted. Unfortunately, I checked their website recently and it looks like they're temporarily closed for relocation. But hopefully by the time we go back, they'll be reopened.
Yeah, and what I thought was really cool about that place too is the guys who are serving the beer and, having the conversations with you behind the bar are also the people who made the beer. So, they're more than happy to answer any sort of questions you may have about the process or about, the taste, and know way more about it than I do. So it's just fun to, have those conversations and see those conversations going on with other people. So, yeah, that's another place I'd definitely recommend and would love to go back to. So, just to recap everything.
If you had 48 hours.
Yeah, so if you had maybe 48 hours in Townsend, which, I would highly suggest visiting, what we would do is we would hike Abrams Falls. We'd drive Cades Cove maybe a few times.
Check out a couple of the other trails off of it that we didn't get a chance to before.
Yeah, I'm sure there are no bad trails. It's just a beautiful place, and you're going to find great views and probably wildlife wherever you go.
Yeah, we did check out a couple others, but unfortunately I can't remember their names or the locations. I just have pictures of them.
Yeah, Abrams Falls is definitely the one that sticks out in our mind.
Yeah.
We'd suggest going over to North Carolina. Hopefully, like we said,
Not that far of a drive.
No, it's a very beautiful drive too. Yeah. So it's worth it, and maybe you'll see some elk. And go to Klingman's Dome while you're there.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of, on that drive, there's a lot of places where you can pull over. So when we were coming back, the sun was setting. So we were able to pull over and watch the sunset down over the Smokies. And it was gorgeous.
Yeah, and then, we're not above touristy stuff like we said. So be sure to go into Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, things like that. And just, have one day or half a day where you do some embarrassingly touristy cliche things. That was fun. I like riding Ferris wheels, seeing city lights every now and then. I didn't mind the Alpine coaster, even though it might have been my first and last time doing it.
And we didn't do any of the comedy barn stuff, but I've heard that they have really good shows. So that might be something that we check out on our next visit through.
Yeah, and then be sure to eat at Smokin' Joe's, get some good barbecue, Tennessee barbecue, get some sweet tea, and then go to Blue Tick Brewing. So I think that would be our suggestions. And I think we'll close out with one thing that we learned.
Yeah, so when we first bought the RV, we were told that there's a certain checklist that you go through when you are packing up and moving or when you're setting up. And we have that down packed. But what we learned is that you have to check everything, even beyond what you think your checklist should be. So I don't know yet if this is common for every RV, but the way our awning on our slide out is if it rains really heavily and there's a lot of wind, we're going to get a little bit of water on the slide out. And we didn't know this. So we're getting ready to leave Townsend and we're pulling through and there's a stop sign. So Zach pulls up, stops, and all of a sudden we hear this rushing water sound. And we were like, what on earth is that? And where is it coming from? And all of a sudden the water just comes crashing down onto Zach's head and he's just soaked and the chair is soaked and he's just looking at me. And it was really funny. It's still really funny.
Yeah.
But so we learned, check everything, even if you think you don't need to. Just double check everything.
So we had unknowingly brought water into the RV from the slide that had been outside, and then it just all crashed forward when I hit the brakes. So that's something I definitely check every single time now, whether it's rained or not, because I don't want to deal with that again.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us this episode and for going down memory lane with us. Like I said, going back into Tennessee gets me a little nostalgic. But a couple of things that we have coming up next, we're going to be interviewing a digital nomad. He's working wherever his computer is, and he's got a pretty interesting itinerary coming up for this year. And
I think he was basically going to be in a new place every month.
Yeah, so I'm interested to hear, why he's picking those specific locations and kind of how he moved into a nomad position as well. And then we'll be talking to a flight attendant and talk about how she travels as a career.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that one too, because I know there are all different types of flight attendants, personality-wise. Some who love to take full advantage and travel, and some who use it as more just a career to support whatever other lifestyle they want to live. So it'll be interesting to hear from her and hear the different ways that you can use this career to live the way you want to live.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. One of the things we want to do with this podcast is touch on the different ways that you can travel. So we're definitely looking forward to diving into taking a career that makes you travel and see how that works.
Thanks for tuning in to Thinking Liberty, Episode 3. Be sure to check out our show notes page at thinkingliberty.com/3 for any of the resources, URLs, restaurants, or anything else that we mentioned during this episode. Also, be sure to give us a like on Facebook and a follow on Twitter at ListenTL for both of them. And if you want to support the show, please give us a like, a subscribe, a comment, a rating on just whatever podcast platform you're on right now, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. Any of this helps us and will help spread the show and get it in more ears, help spread the word, get more guests on the show. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Thinking Liberty. Subscribe to the show for free on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher at thinkingliberty.com. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, articles by Zach and Sarah, and more. We'll see you next time.